Hi everybody, it's Chris at Mardave. Today we are going to be building the new hot rod HR3. So let's get started with the new hot rod. Unlike its predecessor, the OE, the chassis, as you can see, we've widened across here and at the back just to give you a little bit more stiffness. These cars tend to be now raced more and more on a circuit rather than an oval. So by doing this, gives the chassis a little bit more rigidity. It's not so flexible. This one, we have got a skin that's been designed for it. These will be available shortly on our website. Protects the chassis and makes it look a bit more sporty with the carbon fibre look. So let's get started. This is the chassis as it comes within a GRP. With the option pack, which we're going to be building today, you get the speed controller with it, motor, lowering plate and braces. You have an option of having the Ultra RS, which is a forward and reverse speed controller, or you can have the new HR3 one, which a few of the clubs have adopted to stop people from reversing out in front of people racing around the circuit, and then they get marshalled. So we've got the Ultra RS in, and we've got the core CR711 motor, which is a 21 turn silver can motor, and we've also fitted the aluminium lowering plate onto the motor. This drops the motor by about 5 mil, so it gets your centre of gravity down nice and low, and it also spaces the motor so the motor is more central in the car, so the pod is nicely balanced. So I've started by putting the two M3x25 screws in and their nuts, and I've also put the centre guide pin in. What you can do is with that guide pin, a little speed secret, as our friends at Schumacher used to say, you can polish this pin. So get a bit wet and dry, 200-300 grade, and put it in a drill, spin it up, and make sure that that shaft is nicely smooth and shiny. It really does help a nice smooth pod action. So we'll get started. We'll build the rear pod first. So as I said, this is going to be an option pack kit. So it comes with Z drives. It comes with a GRP base plate and the dog drive on one side with the Z drive and Delrin gear on the other side. So first things first, we'll put the self-tapping screw into this side, which goes through and locates on this little sticky out bit on the other side of the pod. So they go together, screwdriver in through one side, locating the pod, make sure it's nice and flat. Then we take the GRP base plate. This comes already pre-assembled. You have the ball joint glued into place, the guide support and the droop screws already in position. What you can do, these two screws here, if you tighten them up so they're quite tight and squeeze the O-ring down, you can actually get a bit of damping on the guide pin, because the O-ring squeezes against the guide pin which is on the back, and you get a bit of damping on the back of the guide pin. So that's just another little speed secret. So we put the base plate on the bottom of the pod, and we will secure that with 4 M3x10s. Once we've got all of those screws firmly in position, we can mount the pod to the chassis. on the chassis there's 3 holes. Now we have a 0 position, a +5 and a +10. So basically you are moving the front support of the pod 10 mil further forward from its original position. Now in the GRP plates we only do a +5 and a +10. In the base kits you get a plastic base plate which is set at 0, so you haven't got that lift further forward on the pod. Now what we found is the +5 and +10 on circuit is definitely the way to go. It makes the pod a lot easier to lift. You get a lot more feel out of the car by moving this position further forward. So all of the option packs come with a +10 for circuit. If you're going to do oval, we would probably recommend a +5. If you're just using this for your young lad or young daughter to play with, then we supply it with a standard plastic base plate. So base plates fitted to the bottom. We then use an M3x10, pop that through the chassis, and we use a washer which is in the pack to give you a little bit of squat, so it lifts the front of the pod up, so it just lifts the pod up slightly. So we drop that over the 2 screws at the back onto the screw at the front and tighten this up. So now you've got your pod in position and it all moves nice and freely. We can then take the springs, 2 black springs, do a range of springs for this car. We tend to run for general use the standard soft springs. If you're on an oval, we go for the silvers, which is a medium spring, and then for circuit, I think by far the black spring is the one to go for. So we drop those over the 2 posts. We've then got 2 little plastic top hats which go over the top of the springs, and we then have 2 M3 nuts which will then go over the top of that. I shall be back shortly with step 2.